Hey followers, this is your boy, Movie Maker Doug55, the author of The Amazing Comeback of an Autistic Spokesperson, my biggest success story so far. Today I have Andy McPhee with me today, my coach and mentor, and we also have fellow author Ken Brandt with us. Welcome, Ken.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, welcome, Ken. Thanks for making time to join us from Melbourne. You're in Melbourne, Australia, still in lockdown over there due to COVID. So it's been, 8 weeks now? 8 or 9?
I've completely lost track. It seems like a million.
Yeah, you're just marking the crosses off on the calendar, right? Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I'm in Los Angeles, and Doug's in Phoenix, Arizona. So
actually, I'm in Bryce Canyon.
Oh yeah, right. All right, Doug, I'll hand it back to you, mate, and get the ball rolling, and we'll hear a bit about Ken's journey.
All righty. So, Ken, I'm grateful that you made the time to come on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's fun to be here.
For sure. So, my first question I must ask you is, where are you originally from?
As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the U.S. I was born in Pittsburgh, lived there for a couple of months, and then as an infant moved to Chicago, lived there for a year or so, then lived outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, lived there till I was in second grade. Then my family moved again and lived in Connecticut outside New York City, where I lived until I went to university in Washington, D.C. I went to American University for 4 years. And then I moved to New York City, where I lived the vast majority of my life. I had a 4-year stint in Baltimore, Maryland, which was a lot of fun. I liked living there too. Moved back to New York City. And then in 2006, moved to Melbourne, Australia, where I've been since then. So I really love all those places.
Nice.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize you'd originated from the US and moved around so much, mate. At least you ended up, and I love the US, but at least you ended up in a good state, mate. Victoria's a cool place.
Oh, it's really good. Well, we're still American citizens, and we're also Australian. My wife and I also Australian citizens. We really, really like both of them. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, we would we'd go back to traveling back and forth regularly between the U.S. and Australia.
Yeah, it's a bit hard. I can't even get back there now because the airfares are ridiculous at the moment, just trying to fly in. But look, Ken, can you just share a little bit with what you're up to at the moment? Like I know you're an author. I've seen a lot of your stuff on Instagram, your books and that. So can you just share a little bit about what you are doing at the moment?
Sure. Well, I hope you don't have me confused with somebody else, because I don't have anything on Instagram, but
oh, no, sorry.
I've got stuff on Facebook and LinkedIn, and there's a website. I've got a website about my book, kenbrandt.com. But what am I doing? I spent most of my career as an information technology and information security consultant and senior manager, and really enjoyed that. Different parts of the U.S. and Australia and traveling around, and all of that was really good. Then I retired, and I've been mostly goofing off, amateur trumpet playing, working out, seeing friends and family and having a good time. And I decided to write a book covering my vision and sort of adventures related to that. During my career, I didn't want to discuss my vision because I thought, and most of my life I didn't want to discuss my vision because I thought, people would feel bad for me or treat me differently, or it might be bad for my career if people knew how poor my sight was. So I just didn't bring up the topic and generally avoided it and skipped over it whenever it did come up. Until I decided, well, you know what? I might as well write a book and put all this stuff down, because I've got a lot of adventure stories and anecdotes and stuff that people have really liked hearing over coffee or beers. And I've been telling them off and on throughout my life. I said, let's just put them all in a book because it could help some other people with poor vision have a little bit of a better attitude and cheer them up. Plus, like a lot of my friends just like the story. So people who like biographies or adventures, will like the book. Plus people with poor vision will like the book. So I thought, well, let me just do that. I'll write a book. So it took me about 2 years off and on. It was a very slow process because I'd write for a couple of days, then I wouldn't do anything for a week. Then I'd write for a couple of weeks, then I wouldn't do anything for a month. And all of that took a while, but those gaps really helped because you think of new ideas and you always had it in the back of your mind. You remember other stories and you'd add them. So the whole thing really took a long time. Right now it's out in hardcover, paperback, and ebook, which is great. And I'm still narrating the audiobook, which will hopefully come out in a couple of months.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. That's really cool. Doug.
Yeah, that sort of reminds me. I should mention, just to stay on topic, I have a little bit of poor vision myself. When I was a kid, there was a point where I could see 100%. Like my vision was good. But around the time that I was in third grade, my eyes basically changed. Like they changed abruptly. Like one day at school, I was running into things and I was running into people, and the staff members kind of noticed. And over the course of a few weeks, I started reporting that I could only see blurry stuff. And so I was brought to an eye doctor by my parents, and I was diagnosed with nearsightedness. And when I learned about nearsightedness, I was a little bit confused, obviously, because I never experienced it. But I was told that because of it, I was going to have to wear glasses for the rest of my life. And that's why I wear these, yeah.
Well, you're in good company. There are literally tens of millions of people around the world with poor vision, and nearsightedness is one of the most common situations. For people listening who don't know what nearsighted is, it means you need to hold things closer or be closer to things to see them as well as other people. I've had also a sort of a vision situation where my vision has gone dramatically up and down throughout my life. So I've experienced some pretty much a roller coaster of vision. I started off pretty poorly. I had very poor vision when I was born. I was born premature, so your eyes develop late. So you don't have as many rods and cones in your eyes as everybody else. So I've always had poor vision and slightly crossed eyes as well. So that's the way it's always been. But nevertheless, it's gone up and down. So parts of my life, big chunks, I was legally blind. I've had 6 eye operations, a cataract operation in each eye, a detached retina operation in each eye. And so things, get worse, and then you have one of those operations and they get way better. So you experience, like some of the ups and downs, and the downs are usually really, really slow, so you don't even notice them. And then the ups are all of a sudden. And so it's very, very exciting. Even though you don't get all the way up to where most of the people are, you improve dramatically. And it's so cool. You just walk around afterwards, just looking at everything again. I had an experience where, like, for example, after one of my cataract operations, I could see better, and everybody I knew I was going to go have it. So I got done, and I could see much better. Still, not any better than before the cataract developed. But anyway, so I went around and I told every single woman like I knew, business associates, my mother, relatives, friends, all these people, all different heights, weights, shapes, races, religions. They're like, no discrimination. Everybody all over the place. I told all of those women, I go, you look even more beautiful than I thought now that I can see better. And they all smiled and laughed. Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice. And then I also told every single guy, same thing. I said, and it was, like all heights, weights, every kind of look, ages, everything. I said, well, I can see a little better, and you look just a little bit uglier than I thought you did, And they all like go, oh. They all sort of smiled and nodded down. Everybody agreed. It was 100%. It was hysterical. It was an amazing social experiment. And so then a couple of years later, I had another cataract operation in the other eye. I did the same thing, and the same thing happened again. It was great.
That's Ken. That's really funny. Like, the story's funny, but it just shows you, like, when say, if your human body is functioning as well as it can be, and the senses and everything are working at optimal level, then you lose one of those senses, and then, like you just shared, then you have operations where it brings it back. Everything has a whole different view to you that we just see every day and take for granted. And it's amazing. I'm working with a young guy at the moment who's legally blind, and we're working on his writing and authoring, but everything has to do is by braille. But I can just, when you shared that story, I can really hear how exciting it must be when you actually get to see things as everybody else does. It must be an incredible experience, like you just shared.
Well, exactly. And so some people are, and it's not uncommon. People have different things. Well, like with Doug, it's the difference between not wearing your glasses and wearing your glasses. But you do it every day, Doug, so you don't think of it as like a giant thing, even though you if you do think about it, you realize it and appreciate it. But same thing with contact lenses, same thing with people who have different eye operations. It can be so explosively fun and great.
Yeah, I could imagine. Doug, I'm sure you got some more questions there, mate.
Yeah, I do. So, what do you do for people with poor eyesight?
Well, my background is totally non-medical. I'm not in any sense an eye doctor or a medical person. I haven't even taken a biology course, so all I know about this stuff is, things I've read and things that have happened to me. What I recommend to anybody with poor eyesight is a couple of step process. First, do everything that everybody should be doing to help their health: exercise, eat right, protect your eyes, wear safety goggles when you need to, get glasses, do whatever your eye doctor says for contacts or operations or anything. Do all of that basic stuff. Then when you get to the point where whatever your vision is, no matter how good or bad, just be grateful for whatever vision you have. It's way better than some people who can't see at all, no matter how little you can see. So be grateful for it. And then whatever you want to do, just go for it. Give it a red hot go. Just go for it. Don't let the vision hold you back. Just go for it. And as you're going for it, enjoy it, enjoy the fun, enjoy the adventure, enjoy the humor. Cause like you were saying, you bump into things, it just happens. If you don't think that's funny, well, your life is just not going to be as good. You'd have to enjoy the humor along with the rest of it.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You can make light of anything you have. Anyway, just to continue the chat, how are you holding up in times as COVID-19?
Oh, fine. There's a little bit of a silver lining for authors in a pandemic. I'm not saying pandemics are good, but for writing and editing, and also for spending time doing things like this and social media, publicizing a book, it's all pretty much heads down activity that you're doing by yourself or by yourself remotely with other people. But you're spending a lot of time indoors at your PC, which is more or less perfect for pandemic, approach to life. like luckily I can still get outside and exercise, and jogging and stuff is all permitted, and so it's easy to stay in shape. But in terms of social interaction, in Melbourne anyway, where I live, we can only go 3 miles in any direction. We can't. All the restaurants are closed except for takeaway food. Most things that we would normally go to, music events, talks, all that kind of stuff that's all locked down for now.
There's a
So, for
lot of the
example,
anxiety increasing in Melbourne, then, like health-wise, mental
it's
health.
not going to happen.
What was that?
Oh, just saying, is a lot of the mental health issues rising in Melbourne, Ken? Like with anxieties and people not dealing with the lockdown.
Yes, there are a lot of articles and news items about that, which is of course sad, and it's especially sad where women or kids are in some kind of an abusive situation and they're locked down and it's getting worse. So that whole thing is horrible. It's not unique to Melbourne or Australia, but it's horrible nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ken, just a question: how, as a young child and teenage and young adult, was your vision like? Was it worse than back then, and it's better now, or how did you deal with that at school?
Well, it's been a roller coaster for me. So it's really gone up and down a lot. So the best my vision has ever been is where it is now, and it's been that way at different points in my life, which is 20/80 in my good eye and 21/60 in my poor eye. And what that means is what a normal person sees at 80 feet away, I need to be 20 feet away to see that in my good eye. So, people, I'm seeing other people see 4 times better. And then that's the top part. And then the bottom part would be, I was legally blind for many years and different things. And, how did that affect me in school? Well, I often could not see the blackboard. I went to school back in the days when there actually were blackboards. The whiteboards hadn't been invented. There weren't PowerPoints. There weren't PCs, all of that stuff. So I did much better in classes where you did not have to read the blackboard. So things where there were formulas and spelling mattered, it was much harder. So I had to really spend a lot of time with the books and trying to figure it out, on my own or with somebody's help, as opposed to, like getting it the first time when it was on the blackboard.
Yeah,
but,
right.
I think it makes you a better student because you actually have to really pay attention hard. And so it could be a good learning thing as well. And I ended up, as an economics major in college. So I did have to go through a lot of, figures and everything. And now, that they were drawn on the board and I had to figure that out. I took MBA courses in accounting and finance and
that's awesome.
A lot of math on the board, which I couldn't see.
And look, can I just ask one question before Doug does? What advice would you give to people who have, just dealt with, whether it's hearing, physical, eyesight, any sort of card dealt to you that's, we feel could be a bit unfair? What advice can you give to people, to not be stuck in that circumstance or let it define you?
Well, the stuff I said before about, protecting your eyes and then giving it a red hot go and just being grateful for whatever senses you have. But the other thing is to, generally have an upbeat attitude towards life and whatever you're doing and your friends and all the rest. And really enjoy as much as you can, actually pay more attention than most people to your other senses, Julia Childs was a long ago famous French chef, and she had a TV show and she would teach people she was one of the first TV food cooking channels. And she used to say that when you're cooking, you don't know exactly when something is done, even if you're following the exact recipe and the timing and the temperature and everything. She said the way to know for sure is you can tell when something is completely cooked just by the smell. And you can tell, it's a really cool thing. You don't have to actually, look carefully and cut it open and everything else. I mean, you want to be, of course, careful and make sure everything is cooked as much as possible. But, that's an example of using smell, which is, some people think, the oldest sense. And, take advantage of that. You don't have to hear well, you don't have to smell to take advantage of that. One time, another example of smell can actually save your life. One time I was living in New York City. I was on the 5th floor. I lived on the 5th floor of a 5-story walk-up building, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't such a great neighborhood at the time. And the building next door was set on fire. So I wake up and I'm in this little studio apartment and I look across to the wall, which was very close. It's like 12 feet away or something. And I can't see the wall. And I rolled over and I thought to myself, oh, it sure is smoggy in here. And I'm thinking, smog. And I go back to sleep. Next thing I know, somebody's banging on the door, my neighbor doing a good deed, which I should have been doing if I'd been thinking and paying attention to my sense of smell. It was fire. The smoke was all pouring in. It was pouring in. There was, there's never been smog inside the apartment before or ever, So I should have been thinking and paying attention to my nose, but I wasn't. So I got up, I get dressed as quickly, probably faster than I've ever gotten dressed in my life. I run out to the hallway. The guy's out there that woke everybody else up. And then running up the stairs, we're on the 5th floor now, right, is this fireman. And he's carrying a heavy axe. He's wearing a giant hat. He's wearing all his heavy boots and his clothes, all his heavy duty stuff. And he's sprinting up the stairs. And he says to the two of us, just like this, even though he's running, not out of breath at all. He goes, could you two guys give me a boost over the wall to the other building? And he says it just like that. We were so impressed because, like, when our friends visited us, you could definitely tell they'd walked up 5 flights of stairs. This guy, nothing, right? So we go up to the roof, which is 1 flight up, and we give him a boost over the wall. And he was heavy, we had to lift him up, So he goes over the wall, and his job was to go to the other building with his axe and smash a hole in the roof so the smoke and the heat would go out to help him fight the fire. So then we're up on the roof. So we go to the back of the building and we look and we see this giant amount of smoke is pouring out of their building, making a U-turn in the alleyway behind our buildings and coming in through ours. So that's what was going on. That was the smoke coming in that I should have realized was smoke if I'd been paying attention to my sense of smell instead of smoke. So then we're all still on the roof. So we walk to the front of the building where the street was, and we look down, and there's all the fire trucks and ladders and hoses and everything. And then immediately the lead firefighter gets his bullhorn and yells up, "You idiots, get off the roof and out of the building." So you go, okay. So we figured, so we head back down. My neighbor, left right away, but I figured, well, things look like they're pretty under control. So I went back in my apartment, took a very fast shower, and then went to work. But it's just an example of it's really good to pay attention to your other senses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Oh, that's funny. Doug, over to you, mate.
Yeah, that says a lot. So, what made you decide to become an author? Like, what made you decide to start writing?
Well, I'd spent a lot of my career, as I mentioned, in technology and information security and risk, and I'd written a whole lot of stuff and actually a couple chapters and parts of other people's books and stuff, and I've written a million reports and proposals, but it was all exactly the wrong kind of writing if you want to write an interesting adventure book. So like the writing I had done was all like bullet points and graphs and do this, do that, do this, do that. Here's what you should do, and here's the risk, and here's the order, and here's how many people it'll take, and here's what the dollar cost will be, blah, 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 blah. So that would have been a horrible book if I'd written it that way. But I had to fight that, and instead I had to write the book like I'm used to telling stories verbally. So it was a completely different thing. But luckily, most of the book I told as as anecdotes and adventures that I told people over beers or coffee or something, so that I had experience doing it that way. So the writing of the book was easier the closer I got it to how I would actually verbally describe a story. The other thing that made it much easier, that I recommend to anybody who's a potential author, is when you're done, you think you're all completely done, and you've edited it, you've gone over it a million times, is I showed it to 10 different friends and asked them for feedback. And they all were graciously spent the time reading the book and making suggestions. And some were great at sort of structural changes, move this here, move that there. Others were great at copy editing, correct this, correct that, correct this. Because when you're writing your own book, as you know, you read it over and over and over again, and after a while you just miss things. You'll have the same word in it twice or three times in a row. You'll repeat the same story 2 chapters later, and you won't even notice. So having other people look at it was tremendously valuable, and so I'm very grateful to that. That worked out so well. I did it again with 10 different friends, and it worked out equally as well. So I'd recommend all of that. After that, I gave it to a professional editor. I expected that she would have some great ideas and improvements, and she did. But that wasn't as surprising to me. But what surprised me was, how generous and how useful and helpful it was to show it to friends beforehand.
That's great, man. I had a similar story with writing this book. This was about my high school education, which was a rough spot for me. The book basically focuses on my departure from my hometown of Estes Park, Colorado, to where I am in Arizona. And I went to high school at a different place than I went to growing up. And it was very rough, not graduating with the people I grew up with was kind of tough, but it was meant to be. And my rough spot had begun in my late sophomore year, and it just went on until my senior year. And then I rebuilt my life after a tremendous loss that I went through. And, the good news is I wrote this last year, and it's been my biggest success story as an author, mainly because, I told a lot of things from my point of view, but I owned up to a lot of my flaws from a few years back. And that's what makes it such a successful story,
Well, that's good. But, another thought to throw in there to hopefully make you feel a little bit better. The good thing that happened to you is you moved when it was not a pandemic. I think it's got to be very challenging for people who moved or starting a new school when they don't get to actually go there and meet people. They have to be remote, so they don't have that instant group of peers and people to meet and friends and classmates and stuff. They have no shot at that. They're just somebody in a Zoom. So I'm not saying it was easy for you, but it's a lucky break that nobody thought about until now.
Yeah, and honestly, what I experienced a few years back is probably nothing compared to what some people are experiencing with COVID, not being able to see their friends and see their family and being locked in a variety of cities on lockdown, I probably got an easier deal than some people this year with the pandemic. You know what I mean?
And you know people all over the place, which is fun. So you're Zooming with people around the country and around the world, and that is fun. It's not the same as people who are Zooming all the time with the same small number of people. So that's really good. You just showed your book. Let me show you my book so people can see what it is. Positive Vision, Enjoying the Adventures and Advantages of Poor Eyesight. And anybody who wants more information, it's available online all over the place. And if you want to read book reviews, and very nice book reviews and stuff so far, blurbs and anecdotes and stuff, go to kenbrandt.com, KenBrandt.com. And I hope your audience considers buying it and enjoys it.
Yeah, for sure. Your story is really incredible, Ken. So yeah, we've run out of time, and I want to thank you for appearing on our program today.
Well, it's been my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope your audience enjoys it.
For sure. We'll keep in touch. And everybody, whenever you have a chance, please check out my screenplay, Mose and the Great Escape, based on the biblical story of Moses. And please check out Ken's book, Positive Vision by Ken Brandt. And everybody, I want to thank both Andy McPhee and Ken for appearing on the program. And we'll see you next time on Being Relentless and Unstoppable.